In this video, we're going to be taking a look at multiplication with decimals and whole numbers. Now you will need to turn your Go Math books to page 169 and get out your math journal and pencil. Now the essential question that we are going to answer is how can you use drawings and place value to multiply a decimal and a whole number? Now let's take a look at that page 169, and we need to unlock the problem first of all. Now it says in 2010, the United States Mint released a newly designed Lincoln penny. A Lincoln penny has a mass of 2 5/10 grams. If there are 5 Lincoln pennies on a tray, what is the total mass of the pennies? Now a couple things we need to figure out, those questions on the upper right hand corner. It says how much mass does one penny have? And it's 2.5 grams. Now another question, how many pennies are on the tray? And what we are going to figure out, use grouping language to describe what you're asked to find. And what we need to figure out is how much is 5 groups of 2.5 or 2 5/10. Now a couple things that we're going to need to do. First of all, we want to estimate the product by rounding the decimal to the nearest whole number. Now what we do for that is we look at the place to the right of that whole number, which is 2, the tenths place. That is 5 or greater. So since that tenths place is 5 or greater, we increase that 2 by 1, making it a 3. And then we do an estimate of 5 times 3 equals 15. Okay, now for step 2, we can multiply 2 5/10 by 5. Okay, so for the first step, what we can do is multiply the tenths by 5. In other words, 5 times 5. Okay, 5 times 5 gives us 25 tenths, or 2 1s and 5 tenths. Now if you're looking at the drawing on the right hand side, you can see we have 5 sets of 2 5/10. Okay, so when we're looking at the tenths place, you can see 5 sets. Okay, we have 10 tenths, 20 tenths, and 5 tenths. We regrouped with those 2 sets of 10 tenths, or we could say 4 sets of 5 tenths, making them into a whole. So now you can see 2, which is represented right here on my drawing, and 5 tenths, which is represented when you multiply the tenths by 5. Now moving on to the next few steps. Now what we need to do, we need to multiply the ones. So we have 5 1s and 2 1s. So we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of 2. And then we regrouped as well. Okay, so first of all, 5 1s and 2 1s gives us 10 1s, or 110. Okay, now the next thing we can do is we can add the partial products together. We have 2 5/10 plus 10. It's very, very important that you line up the place value. Okay, so we can see 12 5/10, and we can also see that with our drawing. We see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 representing our whole number, and then 5/10 representing the 5/10. So the Lincoln penny has a mass of 12.5 grams. Okay, explain on the bottom right hand corner, it says Math Talk, explain how the estimate helps you determine if the answer is reasonable. The estimate helps us make sure that our answer is right around that. It's not going to be exact or off by 1 or anything like that. There's not really a set rule, but if you had an estimate of 150 and your final answer is 12 5/10, you either need to recheck your final answer or take a look at your estimate. So very important that the estimate shows that your answer is reasonable. Okay, let's look at another problem on page 170. It says, having a thickness of 1 35/100 millimeters, the dime is the thinnest coin produced by the United States Mint. If you stack 8 dimes, what would be the total thickness of the stack? So we know that we're going to be multiplying 8. Why are we multiplying 1 and 35 hundredths by 8? Because we have 8 dimes, and each dime has a thickness of 1 and 35 hundredths millimeters, and we need to figure out what would be the total thickness of the stack. So let's take a look at our steps. Okay, so step 1, write the decimal factor as a whole number. Okay, so what we need to think about is 1 and 35 hundredths. So what we do is we just multiply that 1 and 35 hundredths times 100. Now remember, as we increase powers of 10, that's how many places our decimal moves to the right. So we take that 1 and 35 hundredths, and we make it 135. Now from here, you can see that we have the option now to multiply just with whole numbers. Sometimes when we multiply decimals can be a little confusing. Okay, so we can take that 135, multiply it by 8. Okay, we have the 8 and 5 gives us 40. Put our 4 here. 8 and 3, 24, plus 4, 28. Put our 8 here. Carry the 2. 8 times 1, or really 8 times 100 is 8, plus 2. It's going to give us 10 for 1080. Now, step 3, we need to place the decimal points where they need to go, because this is not our answer. Okay, 1080 is not our answer, and we know that because we have changed that 1 and 35 hundredths to 135. So what we did is it's important to know that these actually should be 100 here. That's what they did. Didn't think that looked right. Okay, and so you multiply by 100 to get to 135, and then multiplying by 100th, 0.01, for the answer. Now, as we decrease by powers of 10, however many powers of 10 we decrease by, that's how many places to the left you move your decimal. Okay, so you can see we've decreased by 2 powers of 10 here. So that means we need to move our decimal 2 places to the left. So we take that 1080, take your decimal point, understood on the right-hand side of that ones place, move it 2 places to the left for 10 and 80 hundredths. Okay, so now we know a stack of 8 dimes will have to have a thickness of 10 and 80 hundredths millimeters. So you can see we first of all multiplied by the second power of 10, moving that decimal 2 places to the right for 135 times 8. And then it's important, since you did that, in order to get an easier multiplication process, at the very end, what you need to do, you need to multiply by 100th. Okay, because you multiplied by 100, so you need to multiply by 100th, which means you need to move your decimal 2 places to the left. Okay, now let's take a look at the Sharon's Show section. What we need to do is we need to figure out decimal placement whenever we're multiplying with decimals. Now, I want you to write this key tip down. It is not in your Go Math book, but it's very important to know. How many total digits are to the right of the decimal with your factors will determine the total digits to the right of your decimal in your product. Okay, and let me show you some examples here. We have 2 total digits to the right of the decimal in my factors here. Okay, there's only 1 digit that's a decimal. Okay, 1 number that's a decimal. So that 81, there's 2 digits to the right. So what we can even do is just put 2 in parentheses. And since there are 2 digits to the right of the decimal within my factors, that means there needs to be 2 digits to the right of the decimal for my product. So I'll put a decimal point right there between a 7 and a 6. Between the 7 and the 6. Let's say, for example, think about some what ifs here. Let's say, for example, there is a decimal point here. Okay, so it's 681 hundredths times 7 tenths. What we can see here, there's 2 digits to the right with this factor, 1 digit to the right of the decimal in this factor, giving me a total of 3 digits to the right of the decimal within my factors. I think about my rule right up here. So because there are 3 total digits, that means within my factors that needs to be 3 total digits to the right of the decimal within my product. So very, very important rule whenever you're multiplying with decimals, but since there are 2 here, just 2 for my answer. Okay, 3 7/10 times 2, I can see that there's 1 digit to the right of the decimal within all of my factors. That means there needs to be 1 digit to the right of the decimal within my product. Now I want you to work through this problem, place the decimal where it needs to go. When you're finished, you can press play and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, we can see that there were 2 digits to the right of the decimal within my factors. That means 2 digits to the right of the decimal for my product. So that decimal point needs to go between the 6 and the 7. Now let's take a look at this problem on page 171, and it's the on your own section, 4 9300ths times 7. Now I'm going to model this for you and I want you to do it along with me. Okay, and I'm just going to put this as high as we can and we'll just multiply here. Now I'm just going to ignore that decimal point for right now whenever we multiply. So I'm going to take 7 and 3, multiply that together. Put my 1 here, carry my 2, it's 21. 7 times 9 is 63, plus 2 is 5. And then I'm going to bring my 6 over. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 6 is 34. Okay, now thinking back to our tip that I gave you, remember we have 2 places to the right of the decimal in my problem. Okay, within all of my factors. So because there are 2 places to the right of the decimal within my factors, that means I need to have 2 places to the right of the decimal with my product. So I'm going to put my decimal between the 4 and the 5. Now let's take a look at one other one together. We have 8 2/10 times 6. Remember, we're going to ignore this decimal for right now. Multiply 6 and 2. It's going to give us 12. Put our 2 there, carry the 1. Multiply 6 and 8 is 48, plus 1 is 49. Now, we know that within my factors, now, cannot forget this step, there's 1 digit to the right of the decimal within my factors. So because there's a 1 total digit to the right of the decimal within my factors, that means there needs to be 1 total digit to the right of the decimal within my product. So I put my decimal between the 9 and the 2. Now what I want you to do is work on this next problem all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, you should have had 60 and 40 hundredths, or you can even have 60 and 4 tenths. Why did I put my decimal between the 0 and the 4? Because I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal within all of my factors, so that means 2 digits to the right of the decimal within my product. Okay, now I want you to work through this problem all by yourself. Okay, you will need to copy this problem just like I have here on the right. You don't want to try to multiply horizontally here. Vertically is always the way to go. You always want to put the digit with the more digits on top. Okay, so work through this problem. When you're finished, press play and I will have the answer for you. Pause the video now. Okay, you should have had the answer of 4 35 hundredths. Going over the next problem, work through this. When you're finished, press play. I will have the answer for you. Pause the video now. Okay, the answer is 4 74 hundredths. Okay, I want you to work through this problem. Pause the video now. Okay, you can see the 2 answers here. Make sure they match yours. Okay, work through this problem on the screen. Pause the video now. Okay, you can see that the answer is letter B. Okay, here's our essential question and the answer to that essential question. And this concludes our video. If you have any questions about multiplication with decimals and whole numbers, please come and see me.